Hello, thank you for joining Dominate Solutions webinar today on Acumatica. I'm Rob Griffin. I'm the founder and CEO of Dominate Solutions. And with me is Aimee Morgan. Aimee, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Aimee. I am a CPA and Rob's operating partner here representing Acumatica from the accounting side.
To our webinar today, we're going to talk about an intro to Acumatica, and we're also going to talk about a lot of the things that we commonly see with customers choosing Acumatica and choosing us for their construction, financial, and project management solution. So as we get started up here, the thing I think everybody is wondering is what would it be worth to have real-time access to the right data? That's really the question. Ultimately, we're talking about, Aimee, is what does that actually look like, and what is that worth?
What is my job cost? How is this project related from revenue to costs? Where are we from a margin standpoint? Do we need to make adjustments and changes to the project?
Exactly. And so everybody wants that, but then they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't have all my job costs. I don't have missing a lot of key components to be able to get that type of information."
Yeah, so let's talk about what that information could be. We talk about purchase orders, for example, labor. What are some of the other
time entry? Yeah, labor, the time entry part, the procurement you mentioned, equipment rentals. I mean, basically everything that goes on the job site.
Sure. Oh, credit card transactions. Sometimes those come in later and more haphazardly, just because of the rough and tumble field activities. Yeah. So yeah, definitely areas where there's gaps where we can help clients, prospects, what have you, think about how they can look at their projects more holistically so they can see what it truly does cost for each one of their activities and how it relates to the profitability of the project.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let's dive into that. So that's kind of the intro. While you're pulling up Acumatica, I'll kind of keep talking about some of the key things that we're seeing. And really, the challenge for a lot of commercial construction contractors is, number one, is the fact that if they're using a legacy system, and when I say legacy system, what I mean by that is you may be using QuickBooks today, and you may say, well, that's not really it is a legacy system as far as construction, financial, and project management, because I don't care what QuickBooks says, it's not designed to do this. It's not a construction, financial, project management system. Just not. You may be using a legacy construction project management system, but the common denominator to all of this is you can't access it from any device anywhere. It's captive data. It's probably sitting on a desktop or on a server. Doesn't have very good web-based access. Maybe it requires a VPN or RDP or some acronym that the IT people have to do something to give you access that very cumbersome. We're not talking about any of that with Acumatica. You get a URL put in a browser on any device, and this is what you're looking at.
So for example, a person that's out in the field, if they have a tablet, for example, they can see exactly what we're seeing on screen, obviously just with smaller real estate.
Exactly. And so they could be using the web browser, or they could be using a native mobile app for Android or Apple, because Acumatica does all of that. Doesn't matter the device. All you need is the www, the URL, or in this case, the HTTPS, the URL to go to your tenant, which is your instance of Acumatica. And then, so now we've got the cloud access solved so anybody can see it. Then the next problem is, well, what can they see? Do they see everything like in QuickBooks? Or do they just see what they need to see?
Yeah, that's a great point, because one of the things that's really, I think, a game changer for a lot of our clients that come on to Acumatica is the security. So it can be role based and we can get very granular. So there are people who can see everything because they're, maybe at an executive level or operations manager, whereas a field person may only need to see access to the time that they are currently entering into the system or other people's time if they're entering it. And we can, with the security apparatus that we have within Acumatica, we can control exactly what screens are available so they wouldn't even know that those other screens are even there. So that does help for making sure that people are streamlined, they get the right information, but exactly the right information.
So now we've got the web-based access for any type of device. Doesn't matter where you're at. You just need an internet connection. Could be sitting in your truck, could be at home, could be at the job site, could be at the office. Doesn't matter. Got your device. Based on role, you've got the access to do your job. That's all we're talking about. If I'm a project manager, I need to see projects. I need to see project financials. I need to see commitments, change orders, all of that stuff to do my job. I need to see the reports. I need to see the committed cost. I probably don't need to enter accounts payable, but I might need to see the supplier invoices that are coming in, and maybe I need to approve those for the projects I'm responsible for. I don't need to run a company P&L. That's what the CFO does. So I don't need to be able to do that. And so we get the right access. So we solve a lot of the problems out of the gate that are very difficult to solve when the system that you're using doesn't allow you to do that. So that is a key component of what we're talking about. And then now that we've got that established, now let's come back to that I can't see my job cost. How do we solve that in Acumatica?
So on my screen right here is an example of a new screen that has just been released in the 26R1 edition of Acumatica. And this is called the project status screen. And I'd like to think of this as a mini dashboard for your project. So as you can see here, there right at the top are a bunch of tiles that are telling you a lot of the high level metrics that most people are going to want to pay attention to, where their profitability is, where their margin is, they under or overbilled, how many open POs do we still have, what is our budgeted cost versus actuals, where are we on budget. All of these can be drilled into and also provide actionable items for someone to come in and look at this project. Where are we? Where do we need to go? For example, looking at a project like this, if I had these metrics in front of me and I was someone in the project management role, I would notice that we have an underbilled situation. So that might mean that we need to make sure that all of our items have been entered and that we're able to invoice on time. Possibly we may be behind. Maybe there's some backlog in the office. Either way, that's something we would want to look at. We still have costs to come in, but we're negative in margin. So where are our costs not coming in the way that we budgeted? Where are we possibly needing to make some corrections? Or do our budgets need to be adjusted? Is there a change order that needs to come in? Those are the types of things that this is designed to tell you at a very high level right up here. You're able to see a graph of your actuals versus budget, so you can see where those are coming in with real time, as well as some of the project management items like potential change orders, which I pointed out. Definitely, this is pointing to the need for those to cover some of these potential cost overruns, and that we have open requests for information and we have some issues that we need to take care of. So this is a good view to kind of give an overview at the specific project. Plus over here on our side panels, you're able to look at exactly specifically the types of records, if you wanted to dive into these a little more deeply, as well as then going into your financials here and looking at each one of those items that you can also see on the project screen. but here in one view.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And I'm gonna do a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Somebody's gonna say, well, that's great. We can kind of have all that stuff today, but it's in different systems. So how is this going to solve the problem for me? What is this going to do differently than what I have today? So maybe let's jump over to a project and talk about how we do procurement, how we record time, because everything here is going to be centered around a project in Acumatica and how it solves that problem.
Great idea. So first of all, to look at the project in Acumatica, this is the project screen. It's segregated by tabs. Most of these tabs you're also able to look at these from a different way. This meaning that you can look at all your change orders in mass. This view gives you the specific change orders or the committed costs or POs specific to that project alone. So depending on what your concern is, if you want to look at this at the project level, this screen gives you everything you need to know. So starting left to right, this is just our summary data. Then we break it out by task. If they are progress bills, the revenue budget will align to your schedule of values. And then your cost budgets are set up at the project task and cost code level in order to track the actual costs that are coming in and how they align to what we budgeted for at the beginning of the project.
Let's pause here just for a minute, because this really is the key to solving all the problems we're going to talk about today, is that you have one system of record, Acumatica Construction Edition. And in that system of record, everything that happens, whether it's time entry, procurement, invoicing, revenue, fill in the blank. All of that is tied to a project, task, and cost code.
And the other thing I want to point out is that this is only entered into a system once. So where
yes.
people right now, as you were talking about before, how does this help me? Even if you're able to get to this information more often than not, that's because you are duplicating efforts. That also can lead to discrepancies in data or even timing differences. And so having one source of truth, as we like to say, and one view of the same data does help everybody march to the same drum and see exactly the same thing across the board. So that's another win that Acumatica gives you versus some of the other solutions out there.
Yeah, and a big differentiator with Acumatica, to the best of my knowledge, I think this is a true statement. I know Procore has basically the concept of unlimited users. It's just permissions. There's not another ERP that I'm aware of, because I could be wrong about this, but there's not another ERP for construction companies that has unlimited users. Acumatica has this. And
you don't have to parse that, yeah.
So what that means is, with this solution, you're setting up everybody who needs to participate in the process to get the results that you need. It becomes a security role. You know, what do they need to do? What do they need to see? You're not buying seats. You're buying a solution that gives you unlimited users.
That can help from an integrity standpoint. You don't have somebody logging in as somebody else. You are able to track changes that are being made.
Yeah, and that, even just to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, there's audit trails. That's where you're going. So if you made a change in the system, and I could go look at, oh, well, Aimee made that change, or oh, Rob made that change, or John made that change. You can see, because it tracks all those changes.
Yes.
So huge process improvement there from that standpoint. But to go back, kind of just to backtrack a minute, how do we get control of job cost? Is you give everybody who needs access to be able to participate in that process, you give them access.
Then holistically, as you're entering the data in the Acumatica Construction Edition, project is a required field. So everything is being tracked at a project level, even if it's an overhead invoice. So for example, if you have a AP bill that comes in for utilities, as an example, and that's not going to be job costs, and at least not directly, then that would go to an overhead project. By default, we call that Project X. It could be anything that you want. Then if you're actually bringing in an AP bill that is related to materials, then you would match that to the purchase order that was entered into the system. And that is tracked at the project task and cost code level within the project. So you're matching and getting a better idea of exactly how that PO came in, how the budget was set up. Have we received everything? Are we being invoiced for items that we don't have? And enforcing that integrity between what the front office needs from an accounting standpoint and what's happening on the field. Are we receiving these materials? Do we have them all before we pay them? Are there issues? Do we have to return some of those materials? Those types of things. You get visibility into that. That's sometimes lacking if you don't have that integrated.
So if somebody is thinking, will my project managers enter POs? Yes, they will. We have been very successful helping companies standardize that process where they can enter their PO. And maybe we'll just pull up the screen just to see what it looks like. It's very easy to do this because you're issuing the PO or the commitment against the project. So Acumatica knows because you're in that project, it's for that that purchase orders for that project. And so you can have non-stock items. Though in Acumatica, what that means is these are items that you commonly order that can be set up, for those suppliers. And once that PO is issued, it can even go through an approval process before it hits the supplier. When the materials come in, depending on what approval you want, that supplier invoice can be routed back to the PM for approval before it becomes an AP bill. That's what the payable is called in Acumatica, an AP bill, before it becomes an AP bill. But all along the way, it knows it's charged to that project.
Exactly. So you're able to track this. So in our example here, this is a non-stock item called construction materials. And then we put in the lumber details here and track that for this hotel. And so you're able to break this down and look at your actuals when this comes in via AP bill, which we're able to track via the PO history. We're able to see that we've received an AP bill. We were billed for the quantity of 10,500 for a total amount of 31,165. So we know this is fully received. So you can tell by the close status. If you've received this in multiple receipts, you would be able to track that. You also can track the receipts themselves if you want to have a three-way match. So you have flexibility. You don't have to conform your accounting processes to Acumatica's, to every degree. We're flexible, and this allows you to manage the business the way you need to, but give you the constraints that ERP provides, in that you're always costing everything to a project. That those are flowing through correctly. Those are the types of constraints you have. You don't necessarily have to do purchase receipts. They do help as you grow and scale. All of those items add the visibility as well as complexity. So we always like to walk that line finely. You're able to see this completely.
We see a lot of people we talk to, we see a lot of them using third-party systems to do all of this type of stuff, but then it never makes its way back to the financials very well. So there's always a disconnect.
Or double entry in order to make sure that the systems have the same information, which is not a good use of time.
Yeah. And I think the most we've seen is entry in 6 different systems. I don't even know how you keep sanity with that. I mean,
I don't know how you have time
it's
to do anything
chaos.
else but enter data all the
Yeah,
time.
that's exactly right. You're just entering data. You're not even able to analyze the business because there's just so much busy work to do that is not adding value. It's just, repetitive task, and the result's still not going to be correct,
Right.
no matter how
And
hard
plus,
you try.
and plus to that point, especially when you're talking about costs coming in against a project and you're looking at your overall margin and profitability, if there's something that is going wrong with those costs, you don't necessarily have that visibility until after the fact. So you become more reactive instead of proactive. And this allows you to have more of that driver's seat. You're able to look at costs, look at your projects overall a little more holistically, and have visibility into where you might be going, veering into margins that you don't want to be in. How can I course correct? What do I need to do? Without that information, you can't make those types of decisions.
Yeah. And on this topic right here, the PM is an absolute hero.
Yes.
Because they now got the tools to they don't have to spend all their time doing extra stuff. It's all right here in one system. They can just issue the PO, move on, and do what they need to do to manage the job.
Right. And if they're in a situation where we're also doing PO receipts, they're also in the best position to know if those materials actually have appeared on site. That's absolutely really critical. Whereas the accountant, which I used to be, they don't necessarily know that. And so they're kind of flying blind. This allows everyone to have the information that they need in order to, pay that bill if the materials have come in, or follow up if they have.
That's a great point. Kind of along the same vein, one of the things we've seen some of the greatest success with is around time entry.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing.
And the issue with time entry, and of course, anybody that's in this business understands that, all your money is basically, I look at time entry. If you're a construction firm, that is your future revenue, period. You cannot bill a job if you don't have the time entered, correct, approved. You're never going to be able to invoice. And we have taken more companies to a daily time entry process, and they get amazing results from this. It solves so many problems to go to a daily time entry process. It is 100% achievable to do that. And
I'm going to go different.
And while you're pulling that up in Acumatica, we're not going to show it today. We'll do it in a future webinar. But I mean, there's a native mobile app to enter the time. Plus, there's many third-party apps. If you have specific requirements, or like what you're using today, you can still keep using that if it does project task and cost code, of course. But the point is, when the time is entered daily, that information is now in Acumatica at the project task cost code by employee. Anybody with the right access can see that, whether that time is in process, meaning it was just entered and not approved, or it's approved, or maybe it's going to payroll. There's payroll in Acumatica. But the net of all of that is you can see your updated job cost with respect to labor almost instantaneously. And I would say near real time, because it depends on how you approve the time is when it hits the job. And then, of course, with the integrated payroll, if you use Acumatica payroll, then everything is right there. And you have a lot more to say about that. I mean, you've got a unique payroll job cost accountant view on that. So go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is that one thing I like about what Acumatica does is we set this up normally for our customers, where you can get your job cost immediately, and then the payroll may come in and be finalized later. So sometimes there's some ins and outs that may happen between the time that the time is entered. Maybe there's some corrections or what have you. And then when that final payroll flushes out, so you're able to get, let's just say an 80-90% accurate job cost right away on a Monday when all that time is released. Whereas on Thursday, when it's finalized, you could then have that final number. Or if you don't want to see those ins and outs, you can see your job costs updated at the same time payroll's finalized. you have that flexibility within Acumatica. Both of those are supported use cases. And so it's more of what works best for your business. What do we want to see and when do we need to see it?
So we've got cloud access, we've got role-based permission, we've got unlimited users, we've got ability to do procurement properly, we've got the ability to manage time properly, which is absolutely critical for any construction firm.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about, did you have anything else on that topic?
I was just going to point out that, as you can see on this release time activities, is that you're able to see the project and task that each employee is working on. So, and then if we're breaking it down by cost code, that as well. So this just reinforces that this is what we are making sure that the data is being entered from the beginning at this level of detail. That way, the reporting that you see will be able to support that. So from the beginning, we're structuring your data to come into Acumatica in a way that supports you having accurate job costs. And that can be really important to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks.
Critical point, which brings up something we didn't talk about yet, and that's data. A lot of these systems out there today, your data is captive. Either they don't give you the tools to see it, or they don't want you to have the tools, or the tools are not available. And with Acumatica, not only do you have, all these operational type reports in each module, like in the construction module, but we've also got what's called data views. Could you maybe show us one of those? Let's talk a little bit about that.
So this is just an out-of-the-box data view. Rob and I are famous for making lots of these for our clients. So at the end, you would have more, but this is just a standard unpaid AP bill data view. And at the back end of this is a query. If you want to go ahead and dive into that, Rob, go right ahead.
Yeah, and really all this is data view. What all that means is it's just presenting the data on the screen. And as Aimee said, it's all controlled by a query that's every screen in Acumatica is designed the same way. So everything we've looked at thus far on the screen is driven by a query behind the scenes. So what Acumatica did right here is they opened that up to where the end user can create their own data views. And it really gives you the keys to the kingdom as a user to be able to see the data the way you want to see it. And our goal with every customer always is for them to be able to have full self-service on their reporting needs. There's a number of ways to get there. Number one is you've got all the native reports. You've got the data views. You've got the ability to create custom data views. You've got tools like Velixo, which is an Excel add-in we'll talk about in a little bit. But the key point here is this data, this system, I can't say it enough emphasis, this is an open system.
Which you'll demonstrate for us later. Yeah.
It's very secure. So the openness does not compromise any level of security. This product runs in Amazon Web Services. So from an IT perspective, if you're a construction company watching this, it's zero IT for you. You've got to have a computer or a device, internet connection, and a browser. That's it. There's no IT involved whatsoever. Amazon and Acumatica take care of all of that. And matter of fact, I would say go do a search to see how many outages Acumatica's had. Go do a search. And then go do a search on the leading competitors to see how many outages they've had.
Even Procore's had more than
You'll be shocked.
Acumatica.
You'll be shocked. So not to say that couldn't happen, because, if there's a major internet outage, obviously this is not going to work. But those don't happen very often, but those can happen. But I'm talking about the architecture, the managing of the product, the vendor, Acumatica, who does this. They do an excellent job.
Yes.
Excellent job.
Even some higher profile instances when there have been outages, that I know that I was checking and making sure our clients were good and there were no outages within our clients, which is important to know.
And part of that is because they have the redundancy built in with AWS, where if there was an issue and AWS can know about that in advance, they ship those workloads to their other data centers. And so customers never see an issue. So all of that's done for you. This is not something most companies can even think about internally doing this themselves. And it's all provided, part of the solution.
And that could be critical for weather and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we got a WIP report. This is table stakes. So let's talk about this for a little bit.
Yeah, so this is the summary level WIP report. So it's just one line per project. There's also a detailed version of this, which will break this down by task and cost code. So just wanted to do the more overview for the purposes of our demonstration here. This is breaking out your projects in every aspect, from the initial contracts, if you're doing estimates, so you can do forecasts within your projects. Acumatica supports that out of the box. Plus your commitments, which are your purchase orders, so both subcontracts and actual straight purchase orders. And then this brings in your estimated gross profits, and then we start to bring in our actuals, both from the time period that we're looking at. So in this case, I ran this to be year to date. Then this would be project to date through period that I ran it for. So if this project is started in, say, 2025, I wanted to see what has happened in 2026 calendar year. Plus, I can look at this column, and this would capture all of the activity that's happened from the inception of the project through this date. So you can keep track of whatever aspect of the costs that you're looking at, your WIP report stamp. And then you also can do your forecasting. So not only can you do estimates, you can do forecast. And then this will bring up your over and under billings. It'll break it out for us, as well as looking at what your contracted value is going to be, what's remaining. So you're able to see overall the health of your projects, where you are from an under and overbilling standpoint, where you're sitting from a gross profit. So this becomes really important for bonding companies. We have a lot of clients that we want to make sure that they're getting all of the information to match their covenants, and getting that information out as quickly as possible.
We talked to a lot of folks who are doing this in Excel today, and when they see this, I mean, it's just got to be a amazing. The system's going to do that for you, because all the inputs are coming in, and it's designed, around construction and projects, so it knows how to do all of this.
Everything's being tracked at this at the project level, so it is making sure that each one of these columns is being populated based on the row here. Then again, in the detail, that would then break it down further by the specific task or cost code and how they're contributing to the project.
And it's worth noting that Acumatica does 2 product releases per year. So they do a version release in the spring, and they do a version release in the fall. And so they've got a whole team. Construction is one of their major industry focuses. They've got a whole team that works on new features every one of those releases to enhance this product.
And a lot of that comes from community conversations. So people like you and I our clients, potential clients, people who are talking about, oh, Acumatica can be made better, they're taking stock of that. That actually, your voice matters to Acumatica. It may not always get into a release, but you are able to suggest product improvements and then see it progress all the way to getting into a release if you babysit it long enough, like we have seen a couple of things that we've suggested to be.
That's a great point. I think the last release, I don't remember the exact number, but I'm going to say it was like 70 new features came from that community forum where the product enhancements, and I'm talking specifically related to construction, I believe was where that number came from. Could be wrong about that, but it's a big deal for Acumatica to take that feedback. All right. So sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to bring over the Belixo reports to kind of talk about other areas where Acumatica can be leveraged in the world of accounting. I know that accounting people like myself, we live, eat, and breathe in Excel. You do not have to give up your Excel. If you were to come to Acumatica, we can enhance your Excel because you're able to actually pull in data from Acumatica. And also, if you choose to, you could write that information back. So one of the first reports I'm bringing up here is a typical scenario that we see, and that's the paid when paid scenario. So Acumatica has set this up where there are two specific tabs where you can pull a project and a date range, look at the AR that's come in, and compare that to your AP. And then, like I mentioned, you're able to write information back to Acumatica. So based on the AR that's come in, I could actually decide to pay these bills. And so this create payment flag in Acumatica, when I write that back, will actually bring that into the next check run. I still call it check runs, even though I understand that you could be making your payment via ACH or what have you. But this is an example where you're able to leverage your Acumatica data with a real-time business scenario, do everything that you need to, and not have to enter that data more than once. So you can make that decision on what AP bills are going to be paid, know that the system is going to be updated, and the next time that you go and do your scheduled payments, these will be included.
It's a fantastic tool. We have a lot of customers who really enjoy using Excel and Acumatica together. Makes their job a whole lot easier.
Just going to show a couple more. So another example is a project profitability. As we've been talking about job costs, being one of our blind spots potentially for people, this is another example of a data view, for lack of a better way to put it, because it's actually based on that same infrastructure of queries. And this gives you a quick view of how my projects are doing. And you can even add some graphics, all the fun things that you can do with Excel. So it can actually make your Excel better. And again, this is real-time data. So what's in Acumatica can be pulled in and refreshed and updated as often as you need to. So these could be really powerful tools in order to disseminate information across your organization in the way that you're comfortable in Excel. But know that it's your data. You don't have to enter it again. It's just coming in and going back into Acumatica without having to do manual intervention.
Yeah, it actually uses your Acumatica credentials and security.
Yep, that's a great point. So, the security especially is important.
So it's real time. You're not downloading data to do in Excel. This is real time information that it's working with directly from Acumatica.
Yes, although you could download data directly from Acumatica into Excel as well. So you do have flexibility depending on your level of comfort. But for anybody who may be listening to this that may be more of an Excel super user, this is how you can leverage those skills within Acumatica and really get great results.
That's fantastic. I love Belixo.
You know I do too. That's my
Do we want to talk a little bit about payroll?
Sure. So one of the things that we hear a lot about with our clients for payroll is the presence of certified projects. And that obviously is something that everyone needs to be mindful of because there are specific requirements for reporting and things of that nature. And so Acumatica supports that. I'll bring up the screen here. So you're able to enter all of the certified project information, whether you have fringes that are going to be reducing the rate. So there may be the fringes that are supposed to be paid via your contract with your customer. Well, what happens when you're actually already paying some of those? This allows you to dictate those here. So all of the benefits that might reduce that rate. And then all of the dollar amounts that you're required to pay at a minimum. So of course you may have employees that are in these labor classifications. So maybe you have a journeyman, the certified payroll rate's $35. Well, they get paid $45. No problem. They will be paid that $45 rate, not this $35 certified rate. This just is the floor. So by extension, if you had a journeyman that typically gets $25 an hour when they're working on this specific certified payroll project, they'll be paid that $35. You do not have to worry about pulling up and manually looking at and calculating those rates from week to week. They come in automatic. And again, it takes care of the fringes and everything else, so that flows through automatically into the certified project reports that you're required to complete. So this supports you without having to do a lot of manual work. When you configure these items ahead of time, it really does pay off on the end with having a smooth payroll, knowing that your reporting is going to be accurate, and then you'll be able to get it out on time.
Yeah, that is all native. Everything we've shown today so far, except Velixo, everything is native Acumatica functionality. And that's really important because, especially like in the QuickBooks world, you may be using like 8 different systems. I mean, who knows? Or legacy products. And to be able to get go ahead.
Go ahead.
To be able to get everything in one platform with unlimited users, one source of truth, web-based, updated 2 times a year by somebody who focuses on the construction industry, not dabbles. That's really important. It's not a general accounting system that's been retrofitted for construction. This is a construction, financial, and project management system that's been designed for purpose.
And you can see it in the results in the report, the data that you get back.
A couple of things we didn't cover. I'm going to grab the share in just a moment here, but to tee you up, Aimee, to come back to you, a couple of things we didn't cover that are painful for people: AIA billing, T&M billing, retainage management. I think maybe some of those topics we'll come to here in just a moment. I'm going to grab the share and show something here that I worked on for just a short period of time, about 20 minutes. And as we mentioned, Acumatica is designed to be an open system, and that includes open APIs. And what I did here, because I hear a lot of customers needing something like this, they don't really need a field service module. They just really need something to be able to schedule the people for their jobs. I mean, just a scheduling function. And so what I did, using the Acumatica APIs, I have built a app here where I'm pulling in all the employees directly from Acumatica, and then I'm pulling all the projects directly from Acumatica. Now, this was about a 20-minute effort, so it's not a finished product, but it's not production ready. It's just to show you what's possible that you can do with Acumatica using this example. So the way this would work, in this case, I would go select an employee. I could make them part of a crew. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go jump straight down here to the scheduling. Let's put them on Friday the 10th. Or I'm sorry, July the 10th. I'm going to select, they're going to work on Eastgate Strip Mall. They're going to be doing concrete work. Put a note here. I want to notify them that I've scheduled them. Send the scheduling notification, and here we go. They're on there for Friday. And, kind of building off of this, you could have a dashboard. I've got a print view. But this, gives the ability to see what I've got scheduled this week. Again, this is not a complete application. It's just what's possible with the APIs with an open system. Because if you have the right capabilities, you can extend Acumatica to do exactly what you want. It could be time entry. It could be scheduling, resource management. It could be bringing in your supplier invoices. There's just a number of use cases we could go on and on about. This is just one example of what you can do.
And I notice you also have notifications, so that's really, really interesting. So you can actually use this to notify your team where they should be on the job site next day.
Exactly. And you'll notice I didn't actually build out because again, I did this in 20 minutes. But if I was going to finish this out, I would either want email or text, and then send them that message. Here's the job, here's the address, here's any instructions they need to have, and then send that. So again, that's not part of the Acumatica component, but what I could also do here, if I wanted to, is I could create a dashboard in Acumatica, and then I could update the status for each of these jobs to say, hey, they're scheduled. And here's who's on those jobs. So it would all depend on the customer requirements, what you would do with this. But it's very interesting, the possibilities of what you can do when you have a very open system that's designed to support use cases like this. Now, if I go over to Acumatica, these are the endpoints. So in this example, I'm using two of these endpoints. I am using the employee somewhere in here. Using the employee endpoint, and I'm using the project endpoint, and project task and cost code endpoints. So those are all in there out of the box. This does not cost extra. This is all included as part of the overall package to be able to access the APIs. One thing I will note on the APIs is you can also either extend these default APIs, or you can create your own, which we've done both for a lot of customers. So I'm going to send it back to you, Aimee. Just wanted to show that little capability there.
Okay, so I'm going to dive into T&M billing first, and then I'll go into progress billing and retainage because those will blend in perfectly together. So on the T&M budget side or billing side, we can set up billing roles that can be specific to customers. So sometimes you may have specific customer billing rates that you have to supply by classifications. We have a client where I think Rob was 11 or 12 iterations of different billing types for different the different contractors that were working on, and then the equipment and everything else that came in. You also can do markups, so you can have a standard the materials billing scenario where maybe you want to mark up your travel and things of that nature at different percentages. So maybe 5% for travel and 10% for labor to cover some of your burden, things of that nature. So Acumatica supports all of those different types of billing rules. And then that is captured here on the summary tab, where we would have the T&M project rule. And then at the task level, where we assign that billing rule. So you could have fixed fee and also time and expense as an example. Just break it out by task. Then it will bring in the actuals plus those markups. So it could be a 0% markup or what have you. You also can do flat billing rates. Earlier during the pandemic, when fuel costs were kind of like they are now, some of our clients were adding $1 per labor hour for fuel, just as an example. So that was a billing rule that could be called out or not the invoicing. So Acumatica supports all that from a T&M standpoint. Then as far as our press billing, again, we talked about this a little bit more, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth. We set up the revenue budget to match the schedule of values. So as you're billing, you're updating either the percent complete or the dollar amount, depending on which one you know. So you can either do your pending invoice or the percent complete, and then run that progress billing. What that gives us, and I just shortcutted this because for time, is the invoices here, the G702 and G703 that you're used to seeing, and it's breaking it out by the completed previously, current amounts, and are completed and stored to date, as well as what we need to do to finish as well as change orders are called out either here. We have a lot of people that like to have them separated out here. So that's also customization that we do when we break out those change orders here. So this supports AIA billing straight out of the system. You don't have to make any adjustments in Acumatica. This can be sent back and forth between the customer and you until you have that agreed upon amount. And then that invoice can be finalized. So we can support whatever you are on that continuum as far as that's concerned. Then we talked about retainage. So I'm going to go to this invoices tab where we can see that we have this retainage that's been kept based on the contract value. When it comes time to bill that, you just click a button to release retainage. Depending on how fast this comes up. Yeah, there we go.
That's fantastic.
And then we just enter the dollar amounts if it's not 100% retainage, so that you could either release it in full or partially, depending on what's appropriate based on your contract. And I know I ran a little bit over, so I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for questions. Get it back to you, Rob.
Yeah, there is a few, and I think I can summarize a couple of them. What's the difference between the different products that are out there for construction, financials, and project management? I mean, I know that's a difficult question for somebody who is trying to figure out what product they want to go with. And QuickBooks is not the right product. I'll just say that it's not. A lot of companies start with that, and I suppose it's probably easy and enough to start with, but as you ramp up, all these things we talked about quickly start unraveling, and it just makes everything really hard, especially when processes are built on top of suboptimal processes. When you look at the other products in the market, the majority of the construction finance and project management that'll basically do what Acumatica does, the vast majority of them are legacy products. What I mean by that, they've been around 30 years. They've not updated them. They're not web-based. They say they are, but it's through VPNs or some type of connection to be able to make that happen, which means there's additional layers. Those products mostly have been purchased by holding companies that are just selling the product. They're not improving it. So you've got, and I'm saying this from having spent 30 years in this industry. So there's a credibility from that standpoint. Those are legacy products. Then you're left with the direct competitors that we compete against, and none of them have unlimited licensing. They don't have that. They don't have the architecture and the open data that Acumatica provides. And so when I look at the market and say, okay, are there other products that are somewhat equal to Acumatica? Yes, they are. They are somewhat equal. But when you ask those additional questions I just asked, they don't stack up. And they either require a bunch of add-on products. Typically, those are called ISVs, independent software vendors, because you've got to get something for time entry, you've got to get something for payroll, you got to get something for project management. Those don't exist. So then you start adding. Basically, you're doing business with 4 vendors instead of 1 vendor. And I think what Acumatica has done well, having spent almost 30 years in the ERP space, is they have designed this to give the end user the type of tools to make their day-to-day job easier. Where if the customer wants to learn as much as like what we know, they can do everything we've showed you today themselves. It just takes time. I mean, not to say that the expectation is you spend all your time learning Acumatica. We know you got a business to run. That it's given you that time savings, but you've got to be able to keep increasing your knowledge of this product because it offers so much. And it can do so much for you. And it comes over time. So it's not a day one. I mean, it comes over, months to a couple of years. People start getting really proficient. So that's my thoughts on what we talked about today. Aimee, what did I miss, or what do you want to add to that?
I just want to reiterate from an accounting standpoint that what becomes really important is that alignment. You're tracking your costs side by side. You're looking at your revenues as well as your costs. And so being able to see what's going on in your projects, to be more proactive versus reactive, to me, that always tells me I'm in control of the situation. I have the knowledge that's power to what I need to do in order to run my business the most efficiently I can, and to make sure that we're course correcting if required. Because right now, lots of things are changing. How do you manage all that on top of everything else you have to do? You need to be able to see what's going on real time with your project, with your data.
Great. Well, fantastic. If today was of interest to you, please reach out. We'll be happy to talk to you and go into deeper details on anything we discussed today. And this is all we do is commercial construction. So we specialize in the industry, and we're here to help. And thank you, everyone, for your time today.
Thanks, everybody.